2018. I will remind everyone to please turn your cell phones off. And with that, we are going to have Harry Thomas lead us in prayer this morning.
Pray with me. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you for all the rains that you've given us and pray that you let it rain on the watersheds to fill up our lakes and streams. We pray that you give this council wisdom so that we may make decisions that's in best interest for the citizens of San Angelo. We pray you give strength to those in the leadership positions throughout this particular community and give strength to the first responders as they protect us every day. We also thank you for the men and women that are served in uniform all over this world. All these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Harry. We will now do our proclamations. Let me read the agenda correctly here. Okay, now we will do the pledges.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to do the Texas flag? Let's go.
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
The Cub Scout Packs 22 and 374 who have led us in prayer and in pledges this morning, and I'd like them to turn around and tell us who they are, okay? We're going to start with you. Who are you? You want to tell the crowd who you are? Okay, very good. Tell the crowd. Yes? Last name is Corwin, but we like middle names, don't we? Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of your names. This is a microphone so they can hear me, but I forget to use it. Yeah. Parker, you're my little one. Parker and I have been growing up together, haven't we? Your name?
My name is Parker Book.
Okay, Parker. You can stay up here because we're going to have some photographs. Okay, tell us your name. Turn to the audience. Rocky, thank you for being here. Great name. Thank you for being here. Come on. Lined up so that
They do with the what are the movies? Is it like this? Yeah.
I think he's going to run the meeting.
Yeah.
One more time.
you can perform before we move on and you sit down, okay?
Now they're not shy.
Well, there went our leaders for tomorrow. So thank you, Cub Scouts.
Yay.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Good. Future Cubs. Yeah, that'll serve him well.
Now we will do recognitions and proclamations. The first one is a proclamation of October 7th through 13th, 2008 as Fire Prevention Week. Please come on here, Truth. Good to see you. Fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. Fire departments in the United States respond to nearly 400,000 home fires in a single year. San Angelo residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. The Fire Service of San Angelo is dedicated to the safety of life and property from the devastating effects of fire, and they are joined by other emergency service providers, businesses, safety advocates, schools, and service clubs. Now, therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of October 7th through 13th, 2008 as Fire Prevention Week, and call upon the people of San Angelo to participate in fire prevention activities at home, work, and school, and practice home fire safety, especially this week, which commemorates the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which killed 250 persons, left 100,000 homeless, and destroyed 17,400 buildings.
Thank you, Mayor Gunter and the City Council for this proclamation. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 showed that how devastating fire can be to a community. With over 17,000 buildings destroyed and 100,000 people homeless, it became quite apparent that measures need to be taken to make our communities safer. We've been observing Fire Prevention Week in San Angelo for many years. I know personally that we've done that, and it's a community effort. During Fire Prevention Week, we have presentations given to the elementary schools, and Brent Donahoe leads that effort through the Fire Prevention Office with the assistance of the San Angelo Fire Department. And here today from San Angelo Fire Department is the Chief Brian Dunn and Assistant Chief Todd Stanford. So, Stanford, whichever it was. All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right. And we also work with the Fire Training Center at Goodfellow, the Fire Department at Goodfellow, San Angelo Independent School District, private schools, and sponsors of our fire prevention poster contest for many years has been the San Angelo Rotary Club. So it's a community effort where we all join to recognize how devastating fire can be and that we should take efforts to prevent fires.
Proclamation of October 1 as World Habitat Day 2018 and Affordable Housing Day. Do I have some individuals here? Please. Good. Nice to see you, Bob. On Monday, October 1, 2018, Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo will join with partners around the world in raising awareness, educating, and mobilizing individuals and communities to take action on the current global housing crisis. Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo joins our partners to rededicate ourselves to recognizing the basic right of everyone to adequate shelter. We ask everyone to join together as one global network in communicating the message that every one of us deserves the opportunity for a better future. A decent place to live can remove barriers to opportunity, health, and success for growing families now and for generations to come. Habitat for Humanity began in 1976 as a grassroots effort on a community farm in southern Georgia. The Christian housing organization has since become a leading global nonprofit, working in more than 1,300 communities throughout the U.S. and in more than 70 countries. families and individuals in need of a hand-up partner with Habitat for Humanity to build or improve a place they can call home. Habitat homeowners help build their home alongside volunteers and pay an affordable mortgage. Everyone can help families achieve the strength, stability, and self-reliance they need to build better lives for themselves. Locally, Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo, Galilee Community Development Corporation, and the City of San Angelo stand together to help ensure we can all provide affordable housing throughout our community. Through shelter, we empower. Now, therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Monday, October 1, 2018 as World Habitat Day 2018 and Affordable Housing Day, and call upon the people of San Angelo to realize the positive impact affordable housing has on our community.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation. It's really appreciated. The lack of affordable housing is, in fact, a growing problem. In 2012, a family of making a medium income could afford 44% of the homes for sale. In 2016, that number dropped to 32%. So you can see it's a rising issue. And San Angelo and locally, we're not immune to that trend. Fortunately, we have a very strong affordable housing coalition. And I think working together, we will try to meet that challenge to bring the affordable housing and increase the affordable housing stock here in San Angelo. Thank you.
Galilee Community Development is excited to partner with the city and with Habitat and to provide affordable housing to the city. This year we were able to celebrate our 50th home that we built within the city with partnerships with COSA. Thank you.
Alrighty, so let me get on with it so you don't have to. Recognition of Orange Cat Adoption Program. For the past year, Deputy City Clerk Julia Antilli has been on a mission to provide a home for every orange cat at the City of San Angelo's animal shelter. Thanks to her efforts, 27 copper-colored felines have found new families at no cost to the adopters. Julie's love for orange cats dates back to her childhood pet, Cougar. More recently, she adopted Cougar 2.0 from the animal shelter and confesses to being madly in love with him. Wanting others to experience the joy of a cat with carrot coloring, she agreed to underwrite the $50 cost for anyone who adopts a Morris look-alike from the shelter. To date, she has invested over $1,300 in her campaign. It's worth noting that another cat lover offers the same deal for any gray tabby at the shelter. The $50 adoption cost includes the new pet being sprayed or neutered, microchipped, and vaccinated against rabies. For her efforts, we think Julie is the cat's meow. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud Julie Antilli for her achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak?
Thank you. Just to let you know, this is Elbow. His brother Macaroni is also here today. They're both available for adoption for free through the end of October. So if you need a Halloween cat, I'm happy to provide that. If you're not available to adopt an animal at this point, if you could give your time to the shelter, your money, anything would help them. Thank you.
We will now have a Film Fridley program recognition. Do I have people here? Please come forward. Recognition of CVB Vice President Diane Bays and recognition of City Manager Daniel Valenzuela for their efforts related to the film-friendly program and for their support in helping San Angelo receive a film-friendly designation by the Texas Film Commission. Allie Nichols, you're here to present?
Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Please.
Thank you so much and good morning. Hard act to follow after that kitty, but I'll try and do my best. My name is Allie Nichols. I work as a production consultant with the Texas Film Commission, which is a division of the Office of the Governor's Department of Economic Development and Tourism. On behalf of our office and the many Texas-based vendors, small businesses, cast, and crew members that make up the media production industries of Texas, it is my great honor to present this film-friendly certificate of completion to the city of San Angelo. We proudly welcome San Angelo to the statewide network of more than 120 film-friendly certified communities. Our office would like to particularly thank Diane Bays and her staff and the Visitors Bureau for proactively taking the initiative, exclusively spearheading, and diligently putting in the time and hard work necessary toward completing the requirements for San Angelo's film-friendly certification. We would also like to thank Mayor Brenda Gunter, along with City Council, City Manager Daniel Valenzuela, City Attorney Teresa James, and Public Information Officer Anthony Wilson for their assistance and support behind this initiative. As you know, San Angelo offers a historic downtown brimming with arts and culture, not to mention a treasure trove of unique and iconic potential filming locations. It is truly an oasis of a community, nestled where the Edwards Plateau meets the scenic West Texas desert. San Angelo has hosted film productions for over 70 years, most recently welcoming an independent feature just this year. San Angelo is well suited to see the great benefits of film production and film tourism as a means of economic development and a sense of long-lasting community pride. With this film-friendly certification, San Angelo is now ready to welcome even more new productions. So what exactly does it mean to be film-friendly certified? Being a film-friendly community means being part of a certification program that provides ongoing training and guidance to more than 120 statewide community leaders on how to effectively market their community as a filming destination and how to efficiently accommodate on-location filming activity. After all, we believe it is not so much a matter of if a film, TV, or commercial project is going to come to your community, but when. So being part of a film-friendly program means your community is camera-ready. So we greatly look forward to a continued collaboration as we work to show filmmakers all that San Angelo has to offer. Thank you for having me to San Angelo to celebrating this exciting milestone in your community, and congratulations again.
You're on for someone.
Nice camera.
With proclamations and recognitions done, we will open the meeting with public comment. I would like to say a couple words before anyone, if you wish to come up, come up. First of all, I want to thank all of the leadership and all the individuals who spent so much time and effort living with the mosquitoes while you repaired the water leak. So I know it was a crisis moment, and I think the team showed that they could handle the crisis. It's not what we wanted, but it's what we dealt with, and I think we did it with great skill. So thank all of you for that. I also want to thank Tony Brinker. She's not here today, but she is the woman behind the Operation Blue Shield concept. She created the nonprofit organization when 5 police officers in Dallas were killed, and she understood that we needed to make sure that our police officers understood that we support them and what they do. So I want to thank her and everyone who participated. Frank Carter, our chief, was, I think, one of the first to cross the finish line, so thank you for that effort. And thank you for everybody else who participated in it. It was a great event. It was the first event, but an event well done. And then last, I want to thank Carl White and his group for the event this weekend. They had to do it in the rain and sprinkles and everything, but you got it done. And I noticed even as it rained, people stayed out there and continued to participate in all the activities, so they were determined to have a good afternoon. Thank you, Carl, for that. With those comments, is there any further public comment?
Good morning, Council. Steve Hampton. I would like to hear more about from items on the consent agenda, E, F, and G, please. Thank you.
Allison?
I'll be real quick. I just wanted to kind of second what the mayor said. I know that many people have read what was written on Facebook and a lot of the support and seen the pictures with what we were dealing with last week. But I want to thank everyone for their support and comments to the men and women that put many, many hours into this situation. I want to take another opportunity to verbalize my appreciation and gratitude not only to the water utilities employees that worked on this issue, but to everyone that chipped in and made this a truly remarkable team effort. We are truly blessed with the talent and dedication that we have working for the city. And as thankful as I am, I also want to apologize. I'm sorry that it took an event like this to show my sincerest appreciation for what these guys and gals do day in and day out. I'm truly thankful for the work you have done, you're doing now, and for the work you continue to do day in and day out. I'm proud to work for this organization, and I'm proud to have an amazing staff that does amazing work.
Thank you, Allison.
Right.
Council, Mayor, everyone in public viewing audience. Sandra Villarreal, Director of Health, and Brent Casey, Recreation Manager. And we are here as co-chairs of the Mayor's Wellness Partnership. September is Healthy Aging Month. And so we'd like to kind of recognize that month and basically just have everybody take a moment and celebrate life, celebrate and turning a new leaf, and focusing on the positive aspects of aging. With that said,
we're having a Fall Into Health, Healthy Aging Wellness Expo on this Thursday, September the 20th, out Southside Recreation Center, which is at 2750 Ben Ficklin Avenue. And we have 21 vendors coming out, so going to be lots of prizes given away. It's not just for seniors, it's for people of all ages, so if you can take an early lunch break or just stop by and check us out and get all the wellness information for all of our citizens, it's going to be a great event from 9 to 11 at Southside on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have further? Yes, Daniel.
Mayor, I'd also prepared some words. I know that you've already thanked staff. Allison went up there and thanked staff as well, but it really is important to emphasize the importance of all staff. Non-civil service, of course, this week was outstanding. As an Army veteran, I know what it is to raise my right hand and swore to defend and protect this country. Much like the police officers and firefighters swore to protect this fine community of ours. So I value and have great appreciation for these officers and firefighters. However, often these are the only city employees who receive strong support from our community. Our non-civil service employees deserve much support and appreciation, as evidenced by events of this past week. Where would we be without these employees? Without water, that's where. These hardworking employees, the staff members, are very humble and do their work quietly without notice or recognition. Many of them would shy away from the notion of being called the most important employees of any group in the city. However, this past week, they definitely were the most important employees of our community. I will also say that this weekend I attended an event that recognized the first responders, the police officers and firefighters. It was a great event. I really appreciated that. But I also want to point out that whenever there's a disaster in our community, Some of those first responders include non-civil service employees, and that's those individuals that we were just talking about a while ago. They're out there setting barriers, making sure that intersections, dangerous intersections are blocked. They're guiding people to safety, citizens that are out there. They're lifting and removing debris from roadways, and they do so much more during those events. So again, for those of you in this community, and I heard some people that are critical of the staff, we cannot guarantee that there will never be another big water leak like that. I don't think any community can. But I can tell you we will respond as quickly as we can. And this past week, our employees did an outstanding job. So again, instead of being critical, if you see these employees, pat them on the back and thank them for a job well done. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. Any further public comment? If not, we will move into the consent agenda. Steve Hampton asked that we pull item E, F, and G, and I'm going to ask that we pull item C. Does council have any other items that they would like to have pulled?
Mayor, I don't have any items, but I would just like to echo what you have said, what Allison has said, and what Daniel has said, thanking those employees in our water department that were so critical to us, this past week. And I didn't realize until I spoke with the mayor that they were working in those conditions while fighting off mosquitoes eating them up. So, I think it's just a real tribute to the staff that we have in our city employment and what they have to go through that we as ordinary citizens don't always see. We just know the result, but we don't always see what it is that they're going through to provide us with the services that we have. So I thank them personally, and I think all of Citizenry does. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Billy. Lane?
I have nothing to pull, but thank you, Allison, for putting those on Facebook to let everybody know exactly the videos and the pictures of, the firsthand response that they had.
Lucy?
I have nothing to pull, but ditto on what everyone has said, and I personally want to say thank you to these men that worked so hard to get this city back up and going. And to tell y'all the truth, every time that I turn the faucet on and water comes out, I thank those people, and I thank God for them.
Thank you. Harry?
I have nothing to pull, but I will have to say this, and most of you have heard me say this before. Every city employee is important. We've got to, that's the most important asset that we have in the city. We need to take care of those particular individuals. And just because we have people that are in the ditch making a repair doesn't mean that they didn't have a lot of support from a lot of other people. So I have to say this, that is the most important asset that this city has, and we need to continue to take care of them. So I say thank you.
Tom?
Nothing to pull, and I'll say Harry took the exact words right out of my mouth. Over to you, Tom.
Tommy?
Nothing to pull. I echo what everybody has said. I think people would really be shocked if they knew all the departments that were involved. There were probably 6 or 8 different departments, so echoing what everybody said, our most important asset is each and every city employee. I thank them.
Thank you. With that, we are pulling items C, E, F, and G. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of C, E, F, and G?
So moved.
Second, Billy. Any public comment? With none, then we will take a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes, or consent agenda passes 7-0. We will go to item C. Consider authorizing the San Angelo Fire Department to accept and execute an assistance to firefighters grant for $254,991 to install diesel exhaust systems in 6 fire stations. The matching portion for the city is $23,181. Chief Dunn, thank you for being here. My only question was the following, that obviously it says in 6 fire stations. I just want to make sure that the new fire station that we're building is being built with this diesel exhaust system built in.
It is.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you. Do I have further questions for Chief Dunn? All right. Thank you. Item E, Consider adopting resolutions authorizing the adoption of investment
Mayor.
policy. Yes.
We need to take a vote on
Move
the
to
city
approve
list.
item C.
Second.
Any public comment? No public comment. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Then we will move on to item E. Consider adopting resolutions authorizing the adoption of investment policies for the city of San Angelo, Lake Nasworthy, and Costa DC. Tina?
Yes, ma'am. Did Mr. Hampton have a question about the policies?
Maybe you should describe them.
Oh, well,
tell
these are the
people what they
investment
are.
policies that are required to be approved by the city council every year. There are no real changes except for maybe grammar and some changes like that. So,
What are they? I think that's the question. What is the investment policy?
the investment policy governs how we invest our monies for the city. We look at safety, liquidity, and yield in that order, and we have an investment advisor that also assists us with making those investments. We have an investment oversight committee, which is comprised of local investment bankers, as well as 2 of our city council members, Mr. Carter and Mr. Thomas. And so we meet quarterly to review our investments and to look at what changes we need to make and things like that.
Okay. Steve, do you have a question or comments concerning item E after that explanation? Okay, thank you very much, Tina.
You're welcome.
With that, do I have a motion to pass item E?
So move.
A second?
Second.
All in, any further public comment? With no further public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item F, second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2017, and ending September 30th, 2018 for equipment replacement, grants, reimbursed expenses, and obligations.
Yes, ma'am. This is the second reading of the budget amendment that we brought to you at the last meeting.
You have those?
No, we don't bring slides for our consent agenda items.
So Steve, do you have questions concerning item F?
No, ma'am, not having photographic memory, I can't recall all that was entailed there, so.
All right, so I guess what we'll be asking is that even though it's second reading, we should probably have the information available for
Restate it.
review.
No, I have it with me. I just don't have slides
Okay.
to pull up.
You want to review those?
Sure, just one moment. Make sure I get all of them. Okay, the first budget amendment was to use $1,080,000 to fund the purchase of police vehicles. The second one was to budget for liens revenue and an offsetting expense for demolition. The third was to budget for WIC grant funds that they received in excess of their original amount, and they are planning to use that for some technology and other capital. The next one was to increase our hotel occupancy tax budget, thereby increasing our civic events and cultural affairs council expenditure budgets by the same amount. And that was it.
On the police cars, what was the dollar amount that we used from excess sales tax?
$540,000.
Right, and Steve, do you now have a question or comment? With that, is there any further public comment? With no further comments, I will take a motion to approve item F.
So move.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Item G, consider resolution regarding Atmos Energy Corporation's proposal to increase natural gas rates pursuant to its statement of intent filed around June 1st, 2018. Teresa?
Yes, ma'am. This is a follow-up item to that statement of intent where Atmos proposed increasing their rates by $46 million. On June 19th, we passed a resolution that suspended that increase. It was to go into effect on July 6th so that we could have some consultants review what they were requesting. Upon review, our consultants have advised that they believe the most that Atmos could receive is $12.8 million if it went to a hearing. So the purpose of this resolution is to deny their increase of $46 million and approve an increase of $12.8 million, and that's system-wide. If we don't take action on this by October 4th, then the $46 million increase is deemed approved.
On the $12.8 million, When you say that system-wide, talk to us about that. How does that impact the budget, and how does that impact overall City Hall?
Well, Atmos is a statewide entity. We have a group that looks just at our region, so over the entire state, the increase would be the 12.81 million. But because we have the authority to object, we're objecting to the increase for the whole state and not just our region. I think I put it in this. Yeah, the initial requested increase was a 2.32% increase for our residents. With the $12 million increase, that reduces that to a 0.76% increase. We've offered this to Atmos as a settlement, and they haven't responded, so there is a chance that they could still take it to hearing.
All right, so worst case scenario, we have the increase in our budget. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, move to approve.
All right. So
Michael has a question. It's not our budget, it's like our citizens' budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
But I think the mayor's asking anything that's gas related for the city, that we have to make sure that we
Not
fund
with
for.
this. Even our expenses for hiring the consultants and the attorneys are paid by the company.
Okay. Thank you. All right, with that, do I have a motion for approval of item G? A second?
Second.
Any public comment? Steve?
Yeah, Steve always has a comment. My problem is that the gas rates have not increased, and we seem to be only giving them a raise for an annual raise for employees or something of that effect. And this group that we've been connected to doesn't seem to have a willingness to engage in litigation and wants to settle out of court. With $12 million, I think I would settle, and seeing that my expenses haven't increased for the product. But so I don't know what can be done, but this seems to be an annual thing, ongoing, repetitive, and we haven't seemed to solve the solution, solve the problem, rather. I think further examination of this situation needs to be had. What could be done? This is like water. This could be like water. It takes gas to run this city, and it keeps going up. It's another expense that we have to deal with. So I think this is something that we just don't need to rubber stamp and push it on through, but need to really examine it.
Let me remind you of what the attorney said, and that is if we don't take some action by October the 4th, then automatically we go to the higher rate. So
I
this
agree.
today
I agree, we need some action. Yes.
This today has to have action in order for our city attorney to continue to negotiate to keep the
Correct.
rates down and the settlement lower.
And we've waited till this time to do this, so we could have had action further or sooner. So, but
Maybe we
I
could,
agree
maybe we
do
couldn't,
need to.
but-
No, we can address that, Mayor.
Yes.
We can address that.
This is an annual thing.
It is an annual thing. This time around, the Atmos cities were very aggressive in addressing this concern. And this was a battle that's been fought for months and months and months now, to get us to this point. And the rate review, we look at everything that they've submitted as to a justification for that increase. So we're very thorough. The Atmos cities, our representatives are very thorough in looking at those costs and justifying those costs. So it's not something that just barely crept up right now. It's something that's been battled now for quite a long while. Teresa, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that, but again, it's something that we've done very aggressively, though.
Yeah, I would like to add that, the gas rates are regulated by statute and the Public Utilities Commission. It's not the same as our water. The gas company is given the right through the statute to ask for or to increase rates for their costs. In the cities, we do have a right to object. That's pretty much the only ability we have. We have banded together with other cities so that we can have more of a say. We have a greater volume of gas together than we would have individually. I will say that there are other groups similar to our group around the state that have approved a higher rate increase for Atmos than this one. So this was thoroughly studied. We're only given 90 days to conduct the study, and I think it was completed maybe a week or so ago. So there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes work that's done on this.
I would like to see more on it. I don't know how to get hold of this information, this work that you say has been, these studies that have been done. This is alarming to me, and I would appreciate some further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. With that, do I have a motion?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Any further public comment? With no further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. We will now move into the regular agenda. On the regular agenda, I'd like to move item K up and move item J down where K is, so K will come before H. With that, item A, consider adopting a resolution relating to a public hearing and approving financing by Orchid Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corporation for the benefit of Baptist Memorial Ministries and related matters. And today we have...
actually have Chris Evett here with us from First Financial Bank, who will be presenting.
Good morning, Council.
Morning.
Yes, I'm here representing Oric Public Finance. First Financial Bank engaged Oric Public Finance to help us with this transaction. Basically, Baptist Memorial Ministries is refinancing and financing some construction, acquisition, renovation, and or equipment of several of their facilities there on campus. In order to comply with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, it requires that the issuance of any qualified 501c3 obligation be approved by either the governing body of the city or the chief elected executive officer of the city after a public hearing. That public hearing was held last Friday. There on the campus, there was one resident that did attend just to inquire about what money was being refinanced and what the money would be used to renovate and construct out at the facility. It was just an inquiry. There were no objections, and so no other objections made. We would just request that the city approve this. I would point out that the city will have no liabilities for the payments, nor will the city assets be pledged to secure this. This is a private transaction that will basically be between Baptist Memorial Ministries and First Financial Bank.
Thank you. Chris, also thank you very much for the first financial support of Operation Blue Shield event. It's
Welcome.
greatly
Thank you. Great
appreciated.
event.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from council on this item A?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. With item A, a motion and a second, do I have any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote on item A. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Item B, consider resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a second amendment to the Texas Parks and Wildlife State Boating Access Program, 75% matching fund reimbursement grant, program agreement, and related documents that will require 25% matching funds for the construction and renovation of boat ramps and related facilities at Lake Nasworthy and Middle Concho Park. Carl, you're on, please.
Quick orientation of where this project is located. It's located at Lake Nasworthy. Here is Knickerbocker Road, Spring Creek Park, Middle Concho Park. The project is located at the end of the road as you enter Middle Concho Park. It's likely the second most popular park at the lake behind Spring Creek Park. That's the location. The improvements include an improved boat ramp, widening the boat ramp to 4 lanes, a new restroom facility, additional parking, some lighting, and some connections, walking connections. This project was approved by a previous council. They had authorized staff to set aside matching funds for this project and apply for the grant, the boating access grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. That grant was approved. The original plan was for the existing restrooms to be replaced with new restrooms and remain on the septic system. Since the grant project was approved. A sewer line was extended near to the park, just outside of the park. I believe Canes Cove Restaurant is what picked up that service. In talking with staff, we realized the opportunity to put the new restroom for this project on that new sewer system line, and that increased the cost of the project. So we asked TPWD if additional funds might be available to help pay for that. They did approve that, and that's what we're bringing forward for you today is the acceptance of the additional grant funds and authorizing staff to set aside the additional matching funds. Here's a breakdown of the finances, the current scenarios in the left column, a total project $471,000 with 75% from being paid from out of the grant with $117,715 match. Under the revised scenario would be a project of $666,000 with the city match of $166,500, and you see the difference there on the far right column. The original funds that were set aside from the city for the matching funds was from the Lake Nasworthy account that is generated by the interest from the Lake Nasworthy Trust Fund, and the increased match is proposed to come out of Parks and Recreation Department fiscal year 17-18 department savings. So it would be no impact on the general fund.
On the restrooms, you said we're building all new restrooms. What happens to the old restrooms?
They would be demolished. It's a CMU block structure to be demolished, to be replaced by what we call a prefab unit like we have down at the Bosque and at Kids Kingdom. But this unit would also have shower facilities.
Okay. Do I have questions from council? And this additional budget is in the 2017-18 budget.
The additional funds haven't been approved yet. The matching funds haven't been approved yet, but would be after if this is accepted.
Yes,
But
it's savings.
the original.
It's savings within that, and
Yeah.
the original money is budgeted.
Yeah. Okay. No further questions? Do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Do I have public comment?
Steve Hampton, it seems to me that this is a very good thing. We have problems with accessing the lake boat ramps. We have lots of beginnings, but no endings. They've been damaged along the way. We have, I forget the number, like 2 out of 10 ramps work, something of that nature. And so this would be good if, as far as the showers in the bathrooms, forgive me, I don't see the need. That's only going to be a leak, and left on. Some kind of control needs to be worked into that, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl, on the showers, 2 things. Are the restrooms locked up ever, or are they open 24/7? Because I know that creates some public problems.
They are open during the season, but locked during when there aren't campers at the park, which is about half the year. But they are open during the day, during the weekends, and during the season. The showers would have a push button that it would run for a certain amount of time, then shut off, so they wouldn't be running all the time. You would have to activate the button to turn the showers on.
Did the old restroom facilities have a shower?
No, and this is, when we did a survey with the public a handful of years ago, this is one of the higher items that the public has asked for. We don't have shower units at the lake. And Middle Concho Park is a big park for tent camping, not the RV campers. So you have folks out there that several nights that would like to take a shower after camping. This, we have a group from the Homeowners Association who are interested in improvements at the lake. The boat ramp improvements and additional restroom facilities is high on their list as well. So this is trying to meet that desire.
Okay. Do I have further public comment? I think Lake Nasworthy is one of our greatest assets here in San Angelo, and I think any improvements that we can afford to make are well worth the improvements. So I'm excited about this opportunity. With that, we will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item C, first reading and public hearing of ordinance revising Chapter 2, Article 2.07 of the San Angelo Code of Ordinances to standardize provisions related to city boards and commissions. This has been requested by Councilmember Harry Thomas, and the presentation will be made by City Clerk Brian Kendrick. Welcome.
Good morning. How are y'all?
Good.
This is, as we just mentioned, this is a long-term project that Councilmember Thomas has asked for, and I believe there's also a desire among the rest of the council to see some unification on the boards. So this is part of that process of going through the Code of Ordinances and doing a cleanup. So with that, I'll get started. I probably won't read everything on the slides, but if you have any questions, just stop me and let me know. So we're amending Article 2.07. We're going to be bringing back the Park Commission because there's some more complicated matters that I think need a separate discussion. So we're not addressing the Park Commission as part of this amendment. And so the general provisions are we want most boards to be on that same thing of term limits of no more than 3 two-year terms. Also, failing to attend at least 2/3 of the meetings shall be deemed a resignation just automatically.
Is that done on an annual basis? I mean, when you say 2/3?
It's, I believe, a rolling 12 months.
That's right. The ordinance said a rolling 12 months, yeah.
And so removal without cause takes 2/3 of the council on these boards. All boards will have the same conflict of interest provisions as the tiers and COSA DC do currently, which we thought was important, again, to standardize that as well. There's no other changes to terms on the Design and Historic Review Commission, the Water Advisory Board, Civic Events Board, Public Art Commission, Parks and Recreation, and Civil Service. Those are mandated by state statute, so we can't address those. Even if we did, we would still have to obey what the state says. So changes to terms and term limits only. Planning Commission, Fort Concho, COSA DC, they're going from 2 3-year terms to 3 2-year terms. So it's just how we do it. They still have a 6-year max. Airport Advisory Board had 4-year terms and no limits. We're going to 2-year terms, 3 terms. Animal Services, Design and Historic Review, 2-term limit is what we're adding to them. I'm sorry, a 3-term limit from the 2-term limit. Zoning Board of Adjustment, we added 2 alternate members. There's some problems getting quorum on that board. Occasionally, obviously it's very important that they meet when it's time to meet. So right now, the 2 additional members that we have currently are appointed by mayor. So we've added 2 to be appointed by the mayor pro tem. We removed the requirement for an attendance report to be made at a meeting. Those are easily discernible to anybody who needs to know who's attending, so we can provide that information if needed. We inserted the statutory language regarding enforcement. Again, that's just following state law. The Tiers Board changed qualifications to be in compliant with the state statute. The new qualifications are that you be 18 years old, a resident of the county or an adjacent county, or the owner of real property within the zone. And that kind of changes the way we had done that in the past, which was, each council member from certain districts would appoint somebody that lives in the south zone, and from the other 3 districts, they would appoint somebody from the north zone. This, again, follows state statute, so we don't really have any leeway related to that.
Would you go back to that a minute, Brian?
Absolutely.
When it says own real property in the zone, as an individual or as a corporation or as a trust, or does it matter?
I'm going to defer to Teresa for that.
I would say it's as an individual on this particular provision. That's all that the state statute does address. But talking about the corporations, I want to go back to what Brian said about the conflicts of interest. We did expand that slightly. You know, there's always a concern from our public and from a number of you about people benefiting from their participation on these boards. So we included the provisions that if you or family members are an owner or a member of a corporation, then those corporations are also excluded from receiving benefit as well.
Thank you.
I have a question,
Yes,
ma'am.
Billy, please.
Brian, where it says own real property in the zone, is that anywhere in the tier zone?
north or
north
south
the
zone.
south? And I think there was a requirement that you had to live, own property, or work in the zone. So that's gone, and it's just you have to own real property in the zone.
Right.
In order to participate on tiers.
Yes.
It doesn't say, well, go ahead. You might be answering this question.
Upon looking further at the state statute, we could not make those restrictions on the board members. It was part of a motion kind of last minute to approve it, and weren't able to do the appropriate legal research at the meeting. So upon looking at that, those restrictions could not be part of the ordinance. So did you have something to add?
Yeah, that's an or provision, so either you're a resident of adjacent county, or you own property in the zone. So it could be that you don't even live in the state of Texas. If you own property in the zone, you could be a member of the tier.
Then you would have to attend so many meetings.
That's right.
Yes.
But if you are a resident of the county, you don't have to own real property?
That's correct.
Maybe that'll help me get my position.
Yeah, it'll make it easier to fill the positions for sure.
Brian, before we go on, so some of the people we appoint are maybe the most proactive people up and down that corridor. And so now those people are not eligible to get funds for their business, should they have one, correct?
Correct.
Right.
That's been the case for the last couple of years.
That's been the case, and again, unless in the past, if there was some sort of corporation that was set up to protect the person as a second level, which we've addressed now in the conflict of interest.
Well, and I get that. I mean, Tommy, we're just talking about it protects us in that conflict of interest point, but some of the people we do look to appoint are probably some of the most progressive people that would want to, and I know I have an appointment on that board with Greg Gaylor, and should he ever want to improve his Culligan on that street, which has been there forever, he's not eligible. So I missed that when I appointed him, but I was saying that one's new to me. And
Well, he just can't vote on the item. He'd have to recuse himself.
right, but could he still get funds?
Oh, no.
No.
And that has been
No.
the case, as I said.
Yeah.
They made that change probably in 2015, right after I got here.
Okay. I just needed to get that clarified.
He can resign from the board.
That's what we're looking at. I mean,
Tommy, did you have a
I just
question?
zoom out just a little bit here, Brian. The folks that are currently serving on any of these boards, with the terms of service that we are enacting, the 3 2-year terms, what about the folks that are serving today? How do they stagger their terms? Do they all get a brand-new, essentially 6-year term? What happens to those folks that are currently
The term that they're in will count as their first term.
first full term?
Yes.
Regardless of where it is in that.
And I know there is a desire to stagger COCDC. That's one of the boards that's not currently staggered. We're waiting till the current terms end, which will be in February. So probably the second meeting in January, we'll bring to you something to stagger the terms from then on. And we have some leeway there in the way that ordinance was passed. So
just to be clear, for example, if somebody's term was open, is ending in January, for example, that person then could be renominated for one more 3-year term.
they could be, yes, and unless which is the case for most of COCDC, they're serving in an unexpired term, so it's not even their first term yet.
Which didn't work with state statutory.
Well,
Statutes
the unexpired term,
that's
yeah.
right, yeah.
So when they're appointed, because they haven't even served even most of a full term, they'll be appointed to their first term. This won't count as their first term. If it's an unexpired term, it won't count as their first term.
Do you have a further question from council? You can proceed. Sorry.
No. Good questions. Construction Board of Appeals changed from a 2-year term to 3-year terms. Meetings can be canceled when there's no business. Currently,
That's not the case, and so that's awkward to call a meeting and then have nothing to talk about and then adjourn.
Brian, I think you misspoke. Would you reread that first line?
Change from two-year terms to 3 2-year terms. Thank you. We've also moved this board to the appropriate section, so it's not somewhere else in the Code of Ordinances. We're bringing it to align it with the rest of the boards so that you can find information on all those boards in the same place. It'll make it a little bit easier on any citizens that are looking at the Code of Ordinances.
Great.
So all boards must approve new bylaws in accordance with this ordinance within 6 months. The city clerk is authorized to, again, stagger terms for COCDC and adjust other boards as necessary to assure the appropriate rotation. And that's all that I have for you today.
Do I have further questions?
Comment.
Yes, Harry.
I appreciate all the work that went into this. I know this was not easy, but we need to make sure that we continue to look where we are so that we're in alignment with state statutes and we're in alignment with all the rest of the things that we need to do. And I know there's not many citizens out there like Steve that goes and reads ordinances, but there are some, and I get phone calls on a fairly regular basis, about once or twice a quarter, that says, hey, could we do this? And that's why I asked for this a couple of years ago as we went through this, and so I appreciate the work that's being done to accomplish this, to kind of line everything up. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
if I may add just
Yes.
a little bit in honor of the late Jim Turner, who was always calling me and letting me know that this board doesn't exist anymore. Let's remove that from the Code of Ordinances and so forth. He was one of our citizens that did read those Code of Ordinances, and so I dedicate this process to him as well. So,
What are the boards that are being eliminated that no longer exist?
do we have a slide on that?
It's Keep
Think you
San
do.
Angelo Beautiful. There was an airport zoning board and the downtown development.
Okay, thank you. Tommy?
One more question. How long does someone have to be vacated from a board before they would be eligible for reappointment to that same board? Is it a year?
1 year.
Is it a
It's
year?
1 year off the board, and then they can be appointed to the board again if, and that provision is really there. Some boards, it's difficult to find specific positions. I know plumber is a very difficult position to fill on the construction board. And so those ones that serve and they go through their limit and then they can't serve anymore, sometimes it's hard to find a replacement, and so that'll give you some leeway there.
Do I have further questions for Brian?
We also deleted the housing authority from the
Thank
code
you.
as well.
I thought there was one more.
there was one.
Okay. Thank you. With that, do I have a motion to approve item C with,
Move.
and a second? Do I have further public comment? With no further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving item C, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item D, first reading and public hearing on a text amendment to the zoning ordinance Article 3, Section 315.H.4.D to remove a reference to the use category of, quote, game hall. John James will present.
Thank you. Get through to the right item. You may recall just a few months ago, we brought you an item that removed game hall from the ordinance. And there was an issue with the mall and arcades and those sorts of things being regulated and technically not being allowed at the mall. And so as we looked at it, we decided there was really no use any longer for the separate game hall category, so it was just folded into a more general category that it solved the problem for the mall, but also, I think, cleaned up the ordinance. This is a simple item. There was one reference to game halls that was left in the ordinance that we didn't catch the first time around, and so this is just to come forward and strike that provision today as kind of a cleanup item. Under retail sales and services, where we put game hall, there was actually an exception that said basically game halls aren't in this category because they're regulated separately. Once we took that separate regulation out, we just didn't catch that this cross-reference was in there. We do recommend approval, as did the Planning Commission unanimously. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So with changing, eliminating game hall, does it in any way eliminate any activity of any kind?
No, it just expands where anything that qualifies as a game hall, pool halls, billiard halls, arcades, all of those would now be allowed anywhere retail services are allowed.
So only where retail sales and services are allowed. So let's just say one couldn't open one up in the middle of a neighborhood because that neighborhood currently does not have retail sales and services.
That's correct.
So it still protects neighborhoods.
Exactly.
Okay. Do I have questions for John on the game hall conversation?
Move to approve as presented.
Is there, okay, Billy seconds it. Is there a public comment of any kind on this game hall elimination? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item E, first reading and public hearing on a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, Article 2, amending Section 208.0.1 for conditional uses and Section 209.I.1 for special uses to only apply a 12-month expiration period when a permit from the city is required.
Again, John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. What you just read basically explains it. Currently, we have conditional uses and special uses that either the Planning Commission or you all can approve for particular uses in particular areas. Right now, what the ordinance says is those approvals expire within 12 months if the applicant does not get a building permit. Well, some of these conditional uses and special uses don't actually require a building permit. And so this simply says if it expires in 12 months if you don't get a building permit where a building permit is required. Fairly simple, but that way somebody who comes and gets a conditional use or a special use, it would no longer expire in those cases where they weren't ever required to get a building permit. Again, fairly straightforward. This is just the language that's being changed. Be happy to answer any questions.
So in layman's terms, what we're saying that is right now, if a building permit was not required, nothing can expire.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, special uses and conditional uses can be revoked, and so.
And what would cause one to be revoked?
Well, it would have to come to you. So staff would bring it to, in the case of a conditional use, to the Planning Commission, or a special use would come to you all if there was some violation going on a property. We could bring to your consideration a revocation, but there's no automatic revocation of those.
Describe a situation for us that would require, that would happen.
For revocation or for this?
Revocation.
I can't actually think of one off the top of my head. I don't know that we've ever done one. But one thing that I can think of where it could be revoked is where somebody in the past, maybe 10 years ago, got an approval for a particular use on a property, and that use either never happened or has since gone away. And just as a cleanup, we might remove that authorization. Short-term rental is an example of a conditional use or special use that is one of our more common ones now.
Okay, do I have questions from council?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Any public comment on item E? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item F, first reading and public hearing of ordinances approving 1, case CP18-07, an amendment to the comprehensive plan changing the future land use designation from neighborhood to neighborhood center, being 0.22 acres located at 1520 Bryan Street, and 2, case Z18-16, a rezoning from the single-family residential RS1 zoning district to the neighborhood commercial CN zoning district, being 0.22 acres located at 1520 Bryan Street. John?
Thank you. This is a amendment to the comprehensive plan and a rezoning, as you mentioned. The area here is at Bryan Street and South Bell Street. You can see that in this area, at least, the commercial is all on the east side of Bell, and everything to the west is residential. Although if we zoom out in a second, you'll see that there is some commercial on the other side up and down Bell Street. It is all zoned residential at this point, but we would be proposing that that property be rezoned to commercial. This is a look at the property. You can see it is adjacent to homes, and our normal requirements for screening, you can see they already have a fence. That would have to remain if this property becomes commercial to help protect that adjacent residential use. Here, that's the same property, but just looking up and down Bell Street, and you can see that there is commercial currently across the street. Again, across the street is either commercial or, in this case, industrial, but then to the south is residential. We think this is a limited commercial use. By going to neighborhood commercial, that's intended to be compatible with surrounding neighborhood, so it's not going to general commercial or heavy commercial that would allow larger, more outdoor storage, those sorts of things. The neighborhood commercial use is fairly limited, and so that actually matches with what the applicant would be proposing on the property. We did
go back that
Yep.
screen again. When you say area is not developed in a residential capacity, meaning that any development that has happened has been commercial, neighborhood commercial?
Well, it's currently not developed as a residential home, and given its proximity right next to Bell Street, the applicant is suggesting that it would be difficult to build and sell a house right there on such a major street, and so it's more appropriate for commercial on that undeveloped site. We did send out our notices to the surrounding property owners and did not receive any in favor or in opposition.
When we say we 15 notices mailed, do we mail those to those specific addresses so we know that people received these notices? How do we know that they received them?
Well, we're required by state law to send it to the registered property owner, so we don't actually send it to that address. We send it to the owner's address, so if it's a rental house, for example, it goes to the owner, not the occupant. But it is the address on the official appraisal district tax rolls is what we're required to send them to.
Thank you.
Staff does recommend approval of both changes, as did the Planning Commission unanimously. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have questions from council? Harry?
I sat in a planning commission meeting on this one, and the resident came to the microphone, and there was only one question from somebody in the audience. And quite honestly, I support this.
Well,
I
what was the
move to
comment
approve.
from the? What was the comment from the participant?
They wanted to know what the hours would be. They were concerned that if it was going to be late night in a residential area, that it would be, and the hours are going to be from 8 in the morning until 9 or 10 in the evening.
Tommy, do you have any questions or comments? Anyone? Okay. With that, do I have a motion to approve F1 and 2? Or
Move
just
to approve.
one? Yeah.
Move to approve. Could we do two separate motions? Okay.
Do we need two separate motions, or we can do one motion for both 1 and 2?
Yeah. No, we've done them together in the past.
Okay, so you approve, you're making a motion to approve F1 and 2?
Correct.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving F1 and 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? With none opposed, the motion passes 7-0. Item G, final reading and public hearing on an ordinance for case Z18-13, a rezoning from the general commercial, heavy commercial, CG, CH, and single-family residential RS1 zoning districts to the heavy commercial CH zoning district, or alternatively to the planned development PD 18-04 zoning district, being 2.053 acres located at 3014 Grape Creek Road. John?
Thank you. This is one you've seen a couple of times now. This is the Hirschfeld property. You can see the property here adjacent to the home. And so I think we're familiar with this. I'm just going to skip through some of this very quickly. It is currently in the future land use for industrial, but a portion of the property is zoned residential currently. The request before you is to rezone that single-family portion to the heavy commercial district. But as we discussed on the first reading and brought back to you last time, you proposed a plan development that would provide some additional restrictions within this area. And so, again, a couple of pictures we can come back to if we need to. And as you know, we sent out our notifications and did receive 3 in opposition, 1 in favor. The plan development, again, would limit within 55 feet of the adjacent residential properties, no buildings or structures or outdoor storage within that area. As I mentioned last time, we suggested a couple of other provisions. One, no vehicular access. There's currently no access from 31st Street. We would make that a condition of the plan development that they not do that in the future. No activity after hours, so between 10:30 and 7 a.m., which also pairs with our noise ordinance time limitations. It's the same times. And then lighting would be shielded. If there's any lighting within that 55-foot buffer, it couldn't shine into the yards of those adjacent homes. As you requested last time, we did meet with a representative from Hirschfeld as well as the neighboring property owner. Both are generally in agreement that this plan development as proposed is acceptable, although Hirschfeld did have a couple of concerns they wanted to raise. They proposed decreasing that buffer from 55 feet to 35 feet, giving them a little more usable space on the property. And their preference, let me go back to the map here. Their preference, if you recall, there's 2 properties here. They would ask that we only have the protected area adjacent to the complaining homeowner. So I give that to you for your consideration. Our concern would be protecting this homeowner because he complained, but not protecting the other homeowner. Our preference would be if we're going to have a protection from that adjacent residential, we would prefer to see you keep that protection for all of that residential. But that was the request that came out of that meeting with the Hirschfeld representative.
Tom, would you like to comment on this?
John, if we look at that 55-foot number is what we came up with. What's the distance? Because when I talked to a representative from Hirschfeld, it was, we're taking into consideration Mr. Banner's concerns right here. What's the distance to what's already zoned heavy commercial? I mean, would 55 feet actually extend into something they already have zoned?
I think it would. Let me grab my folder here.
So that was the issue up here on the council. They don't want to change anything that they already have on that line that's up to discuss. They're good with staying with it all the down the property line. Of the objections that were pointed out, none of them were down on the south end. It was the people up on the north end. So that's why they were saying, is that northeast corner the only corner that would be perceptive? But the question is, they were talking about a line that would just be parallel with what we're looking at rezone, or would match that, nothing that would go in to something they already have zoning on.
Right, now, so this distance here, the narrowest distance is 65 feet. So everything that's already commercial would not be affected. Okay. And so that 55-foot line, if I can, obviously can't draw it very well, but it would be inside into that residential area even at 55 feet. And obviously the 35 feet would be a little closer.
Did Hirschfeld still say they could live with the 55, but they would prefer the 35? Is that what you said on one of those slides?
They may be here to speak to that. I think that's the impression that I got, that their preference was for the 35, but would probably be okay with the 55 if that's what they would live with it.
And the 35 would be for the entire property, not just a section of it that applied to one homeowner only?
Well, as you all recommended with the 55, and as we're recommending that the 55 be the entire property, what Hirschfeld recommended was extending this property line And so protecting this area adjacent to the complaining party, but not protecting any of this area because this property owner did not raise any concerns.
Do we have anyone from in the audience today who would like to speak to this? Yes, please come forward. Good morning.
My name's Randy Bannert. I'm the complainant. I'm sorry if I caused y'all some work. The reason you're not getting any complaints from the neighbors behind me is they're selling their house. They're not there anymore. It's an empty house now. So the one person that says they were neither against or for, they're gone. The house is for sale. The ones that are concerned is everybody that lives around me, my 3 neighbors across the street and myself.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do I have anybody from Hirschfeld Steel here today? With no one from Hirschfeld Steel today, Tom, would you like to make a motion?
I think my motion here will be to go with this, with the provision that if they want 55 feet, the 55 feet goes in correlation with his property line. All right, if you want to go 35 feet, you can go ahead and take it the entire property line. See what I'm saying? So if they want 55 feet, it protects him 55 feet on that northeast corner. If you want to go all the way, I propose we go down to 35 feet. That gives them some, there's an issue with turning around a truck and a trailer in there and back it in there to park. I know those are small things, but if somebody's going to point a finger at you and say you can't do this, that was an issue between being 55 feet and 35 feet, pulling in and parking basically a tractor trailer right there.
Well, what if we split the difference instead of 55 feet or 35 feet, make it 45 feet the entire way?
I think they're not here to speak for that, but I think that's by far a fair assessment of how this needs to go. Mr. Banner, are you good with that? Okay, let's roll that. So I make a motion we go with this for a distance from the east fence for 45 feet for the entire property line.
Okay, with that, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have further public comment? With no further comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Does anybody want to take a break? Do we want to take a break? Do you guys want to take a break?
5 minutes.
5-minute break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Lucy and Tom, we are moving item H and I to follow item J. And then right now we are going to move item K up for discussion. And item K is discussion regarding the use of fiscal year 2018 sales tax revenue surplus. Tina, you're on.
Council, hard copies for you all if you'd like me to pass those out.
Is it these?
Yes, ma'am. So as you know, you had in your background packets those spreadsheets, and I just wanted you to have hard copies in front of you in case you wanted to make any notes or anything like that as we go through this discussion. We had initially started out with excess sales tax revenue over budget of $1.6 million. We have already used $125,000 of that to fund part of the Concho Riverbank stabilization project and another portion to fund an additional 12 police vehicles. And so that left us with a remaining surplus of $941,000. So that's where I wanted to start the discussion and entertain any questions or discussion that you all may want to have.
Okay, I have several. Number one, on the list of the general fund capital improvement projects, We up here, we had the Concho River Bank stabilization of $125,000. My first question is, does that solve the worst problems that exist?
I don't know if Carl's
Would that be
here.
Carl White?
If Carl is here, but that is hard to predict because we haven't bid it out. So what we did was allocate some funding for that. I don't think it's going to solve all the problems. I think that's one of those that we can continually throw, as y'all have walked it and seen it, it's going to take a lot. I think we can spend more, yes, to do that, and I can't totally answer whether we did address funding in there for hotspots. If that's enough, I don't really know at this point till we actually start doing the work.
Go ahead.
We currently have set aside $364,000. 125 came from the sales tax, 125 came from stormwater, and then the remaining funds are from a grant.
Right. My concern is one more rain and those hot spots become a big issue, and I want to make sure that the money set aside is money that we don't worry that a sidewalk disappears or another tree goes down into the river.
Yeah, and part of the problem with trying to figure that out as far as giving you a price is some of those areas that we looked at, as you saw, are ones that we can dump riprap in there to try and stabilize. It's far enough. Others are where it's going to require like a retaining wall. And so while it's a hot spot, it's not a cheap fix. It's not an easy fix. It's one of those more engineered, designed ones. So that's why I can't promise you that every hot spot is going to be fixed, because some of them are larger funding items.
So of the 3 big hot spots that I think we saw, are those fixed within this $365,000?
Yes, Carl tried to include those that we looked at, and those were ones that we could use backfill basically to try and address with riprap. So yes, there's, Tina, do you remember how much is in there that he let 100 and
Carl's
some?
here now, he could come forward.
There was 100 and something that you had in there that was to help address those 3 hot spots that we looked at with some of the council.
The project we're looking at packaging now does depend on the grant, getting the grant with the matching funds we set aside, but it does.
When do we find out about the grant?
Should be this fall.
We're in fall now, so as we're falling apart, where would a date be, do you think?
It's later this fall. And
they don't give you necessarily an exact date, but we anticipate to hear something in September, October, November timeframe.
And what is the value of the maximum value of the grant that we might receive?
Have those figures, but it's
250,000, wasn't it? It's somehow I have stuck in my mind it was 250, but that may not be accurate.
I think it is. It's around 260.
Grant in front of me.
But the project that's packaged. I don't have it with me. Right. Project that's packaged with the UCRA. They're looking at continue the state bank stabilization from below Johnson Dam, working towards Concho Avenue, the crossing, and then hitting the 3 hot spots. That's what we've packaged together.
So that kind of goes back to your initial question. I think we anticipate the funds that are in this, as you see it, will stabilize the bank with the grant from Johnson Dam to the bridge crossing there on Concho, and then address those 3 hot spots we looked at. I cannot say that it'll address all hot spots, because I think there are more, and they're more expensive fixes than this. So we can spend as much money as you want to give us on addressing riverbank stabilization, but I think this should address that bank and those 3 hot spots.
Okay, so when will we have put together a game plan for riverbank stabilization? Because I think we all, as a council, were pretty horrified at what we saw. And as I've said before, I think Lake Nasworthy is one of our greatest assets, and I think the Concho River is one of our greatest assets. So I don't want to move forward and not believe that we have a game plan for stabilizing the riverbanks and making sure that we have taken care of one of our great assets.
What I would suggest that council do, since this is become a priority, and this is one of those items that we've listed for years. It's one that council in the past has taken good action on the river banks that have been stabilized, you see. So this is taking it to the next level. And so what I would recommend is that you allow us to start with these dollars to get those bids back in once we actually stabilize it. And then what we'll do is bring a plan to you that says, here's the next step of the phase we want to do next. And what we'd like to do is continually leverage those dollars you give us with grant opportunities. If we're successful with this grant opportunity, what we're trying to do is checking them or doing a study which would set us up to be eligible for a larger grant. This one's pretty small that we're getting, but it'll allow us to look at those larger dollars, and we bring that as a proposal to you in the upcoming year.
Okay. All right. Then my next question is on this list is the tree irrigation. Like most homeowners, you would never plant a tree without irrigation going to that tree. So what we as a city should make sure we do is irrigate our trees. We lost 80 trees in the last drought. We can't afford to lose 80, 150-year-old oak trees or other trees. I want to make sure that we have taken care of the tree irrigation at Santa Fe Park, because I don't see it listed here. It lists Sulphur Springs, Rio Concho, El Paseo de Santa Angela, and the River Stage. But what about Santa Fe Park?
That's what the other funds that were allocated back in August.
I think at this point, and I'll need to confirm with Parks, but when y'all took action before, we moved on Santa Fe, and we were anticipating there might be a more expensive fix. But what the Parks crew did once they got into and assessed it was found a fairly reasonable, cheap way to do it, which was to alter our existing system. It ran in lines and cap them and then extend, just using the bubblers that were there and capping off all the rest of the system. So they were able to accomplish Santa Fe at this point in-house, basically, with some initial dollars that were used. So that's why you see Santa Fe's not on here, because is that work totally complete, Carl, at this point? Is that work totally complete at this point?
I
Or
need
it's
to
near
double check, but
completion?
it's
Okay.
pretty close to
But
being
they
done.
don't need any additional dollars for Santa Fe.
So we have secured tree irrigation on Santa Fe Park.
Right. Now, I will say that is a adaptation to the existing system, because we were trying to make it happen rapidly. And so,
Is it adequate?
Yes. The only difference is it's above surface watering, not the drip system, which we prefer for trees. But it is adequate to water all the trees in Santa Fe Park. And we already have the system along the river.
Carl, I will ask this on Santa Fe, there were some areas outside of those lines along the roadway and stuff that were individual trees. We talked about trying to irrigate those as well. Do we need additional dollars to take it to those individual spots?
Double check.
And if so, is that something y'all can do in-house, or do you need?
Very highly likely, yes.
Say that again.
What I was asking is if there are some individual pockets of trees that still need it there, is that something they can do in-house with their budget versus having to have additional dollars? And he said that's very likely the case.
Okay.
And that's our internal policy too. For new projects, new planting of trees, we make sure we have irrigation to those new trees when we plant them.
Carl, if you'll stay up here. I took an opportunity to drive around the Fort Concho in recent days, and I am really not happy with the amount of deterioration that I see around the windows, the columns. That is a historic asset to this city. And if you drive around and look at it today, no one can be happy with the state that Fort Concho is in right now. There is so much wood rot and paint that's needed. We have to get on this. What is the game plan?
The game plan is with the savings we'll see with the payment back from the state office complex. We're looking at a 10-year plan where we recoup a lot of those monies that we were paying for the debt to pay off the state office complex. We can utilize those funds to go exactly towards what you're talking about. Hire a contractor and do a lot of that work. Some of it we'll do in-house, but it give us the leverage to hire a contractor to do a lot of that work in the next year or two, beginning.
In the next what?
next year or two?
It has to be done now. It is in a terrible state of wood rot.
What the Ford has struggled with in the past is funding. And so that was typically had to be subsidized by the general fund. So if you would like us to bring back a proposal that utilizes dollars from the general fund for that, we can do that. What we had done in the past is that usually wasn't a luxury for us. We just had little bits and pieces. So we've had to come up with this long-term plan of how to do it without utilizing those dollars. But if y'all want us to bring a plan for that, we can.
I know this, it is a historic Fort Concho. It is an asset, and we cannot let it stay in the condition that it is, and it cannot wait a year or two for repairs. It can't. I drove around. There are things falling off the windows. I mean, it is in dire need of attention.
And I will add to that and say that Mr. Bluthart does have a 10-year plan that we've discussed for using the savings from the state office building, debt service payments, and I think that could be part of the discussion that we bring back.
Cannot be 10 years. I'm telling you, if you drive around it now and take a look at it, it needs work now. Okay. Then I have questions as it relates, if I could, on the animal services items 2, 3, and 4, which would be the $275,000 items and the $50,000 item.
Good morning, Mayor. Thanks
Good
so
morning.
much for having me. To speak to the items we've proposed today, these are to add efficiencies to the shelter. As many of y'all are aware, as you've toured it in the last year or so, the facility is about a 7,000 square foot facility built in 1999, which has had minor improvements over time. There's been attention to the roof and the HVAC in the most recent sales tax surplus in 2015, but beyond that, there's not been much attention to the functionality of the building. And what I mean by that is the building's not being used as it was originally designed. And so the 3 projects you're referencing here are to bring greater efficiency, to bring greater disease control. It does bring us some additional capacity, which I'm happy to expand on as well for the details for that. So these improvements to the building are necessary to continue our workflow properly. Right now, we're just figuring it out, and it would be better to have the building set up in such a way that actually serves the animals the best way possible. And I do have details on each of those sub-projects if you'd like me to go into that level of detail, whatever you like.
Not the general population one, but the 3 other ones, if you would.
Sure. So the area that I'm calling Old Garage, there's an existing part of our building that is not air conditioned, as it's like a garage as in your own home. So there's a giant overhead bay door. There is one drain in the middle of the building, and it's lined on the exterior, the walls with kennels. I am uncomfortable keeping animals in rooms that are not air conditioned with the extreme heat we have in the summers, as well as the cold, somewhat cold conditions that we get in the winters. So what I would propose is enclosing that old garage, making it a true new arrival room. It's something we've battled for quite some time, where that would be clearly just new arrivals for intake. These are animals that arrive throughout the day that are waiting to be assessed and processed to their ultimate kennels. And so what we would do in there is that we would drop the ceiling, we would install HVAC, and we would purchase more kennels because in the summer in particular, we'll fill up that room more than once in a day. And so my staff doesn't have time to go through their daily routine because they're constantly back there saying, well, I've got 3 more big dogs coming in, I've got to move these out to general population. We need there to be a clear designed room where animals can stay for one business day to make sure they don't blow with any illness while we're assessing their health and temperament. The next item that I am calling new garage. So we still have a need for a space where animal services trucks can pull into a secure area, close the garage door behind them, get animals off the truck and into kennels. So what I would propose is just extending where the old garage is, where the overhead door is. If y'all are familiar with the space I'm talking about, you would make that a solid wall with just person-sized doors, okay? Then you would install a new building right behind it that's a true, I keep calling it a Sally port, where the animal services officers can pull in, close the door behind them, so if they're getting a feral cat off the truck, that cat doesn't bolt and be escaped. Any dogs coming off the truck that are going in for bite quarantine, that we can have a secure space that we're getting them down. Also included, so that new garage would require a new pad, and it would require an overhead door, and I'm proposing shelving units because our building, as I mentioned, it's not being used as it was originally designed, so our animal services officers in particular have no storage for their tools. So if we need to go out and catch 18 goats that are loose on Highway 67, I do not know exactly where is the cattle prod, exactly where are these nets, exactly where are large leads to do that. And so we don't have a great inventory management system, and we don't have any personal accountability. So if I am Animal Control Officer 512, I do not have a space to keep my stuff where I know where my stuff is, it's kept in good repair, I can be accountable that, hey, this net has a hole in it, I need to ask for help with it. So I need locked lockers for each employee to have their individual stuff so we can be accountable, you know, who broke this thing that's an expensive tool that I need to replace now. General supplies can be housed there as well. And the method behind that madness as well is that if I line that with shelves and make sure that there is dedicated space there for animal services officers, not only is there greater efficiency so their response time is better, but also I won't put animals in that room because the temptation would be to say, well, we have square footage, we have an extra litter of kittens, where do we put them? And I really want to dedicate that space that it is a non-animal room. It is specifically where a big garage door opens and closes. You never want animals in that room in the event that they should escape or be exposed to different diseases. For the area I'm calling the processing room, and even just the last 10 years, that room has really changed. If any of y'all are familiar with where you could come and do what I used to call the night drop, where you could come after hours, you would open an exterior door, you would put a cat in there and shut the door. When we came in the morning, we can open an interior door, so it's a two-way door. So we closed that off by putting a mural there. There was a lot of discussion about that was the right move for our community to encourage responsible pet ownership. But what we did there was we did not finish out that wall. So when it is hot outside, it is hot in that room. When it is cold outside, it is cold in that room. And it is not keeping, and that's where we keep some pretty expensive medical equipment and supplies. And so we don't want to be at the whim of the elements for being able to keep those things in good repair. So one thing is I want to demolish internally where those old drop-offs are. Right now we're just using them for storage. Well, I won't need those if we have this new garage with storage out there. So I want to demolish that. That'll give us some additional square footage. I want to install a wall. So what happens right now is the processing room is just a flow-through for new employees arriving to work for the day, animal control officers coming in and out of the field, going into their offices, volunteers coming through. It is a highway for all the traffic in and out of the shelter. But that room should be a medical examination room where I have a cat or a dog on an exam table, assessing their health, giving them their vaccines, and we would have two setups for that. So that room should be a quiet exam room, and so you can see the issue. For example, if I'm processing a new arrival cat or a litter of kittens and someone comes through with a bite dog, a large dog, and they're trying to get to the rabies quarantine room. And so we have to kind of skedaddle and make it safe, whereas ideally that would be its own room with a hallway to the thoroughfare areas, and that also helps with the spread of disease. And there would be additional counters and storage with closing off that wall. I do want to point out that there's some pretty major issues going on at the animal shelter in need for improvement. Some of them we've touched on today. I have been working with an architect and with an engineering firm to do a full needs assessment. These are things that they have supported and said, your biggest issue is traffic, the traffic flow, the spread of disease. You know, you walk through the new arrival room, which I'm calling old garage. Every employee walks through that room to come to work for the day. And that's every new animal's arrival point. So if you have pets at home, and if a dog comes in with parvovirus, are you tracking that through the whole building and tracking that home into your vehicle every day? You are, and it's not ideal. And so we want to make these changes so that the spread of disease can be controlled, as well as the safety and comfortableness of the animals.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Could I ask?
Tom, please.
Morgan, if you had to prioritize these, take the general population out, give me a priority between old, new, and processing, 1, 2, and 3, which you'd
These
prefer
are
to
in
have.
order of my priority.
Okay.
So taking general population out, old
1, 2,
garage.
3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to propose something and then open it up for council to add, change, or question this, but it'll help us get through the process, I think. One is it says top 9 equipment replacement needs, which come to about, I believe, $372,000. Is that correct?
$371,000.
$371,000. I believe that these equipment replacement issues are hugely important and need to be done. And I would like us to start with the following, and that is to move these equipment replacement needs into the fiscal 18-19 budget as a total dollar amount, $371,000, and adjust the sales tax revenue up by that amount so that we still net out the same expenses equals revenue.
That would bring, excuse me, our original sales tax revenue budget to about $18.4 million.
And that would be flat to this year.
It's actually a little less. I didn't do the sales tax update yet, but we're at $1.6 million above budget right now.
So with that, if we agree and support that, then I would like to see the following things. Again, this is just my input. It's not, I certainly want other input, but what I would like to see happen is, number one, fund the $120,300 for the tree irrigation.
Mayor, could we get clarification, please? I think we're talking about, do I hear you talking about 2 different fiscal years?
Yes, this would move into the fiscal 18-19 budget.
Right. And we would bring that, we would include that in the original budget ordinance.
Which what we're going to talk about down
Yes,
the road.
ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Now what I'm talking about is using funds that's the excess surplus funds. Okay. So if we did the following, we approved $120,300 for the irrigation. I would like to see us support the 3 animal service issues, which is $200,000. So that would be the $75,000, $75,000, and $50,000 items.
Could I clarify something on animal services? They do have currently set aside $120,000, and I just put it up in the top line to show you that they had some amount available for funding. And so I would defer to Morgan to say whether we need to fund the entire $200,000 or if she could fund part of it through those funds.
Well, but the unfunded goes towards the general population.
Yes, ma'am. I just put it there as a placeholder to let you know that there was some funding available for some of these projects.
That's a good point. So I've been capturing salary savings anywhere in our budget savings and just pigeonholing it for building improvements that can be partnered with any one of these items. So if you are interested in moving forward with these 3 projects and having me fund $120,000 of it and then the rest of it for consideration, although I will point out that I'll continue to do that. And so if y'all are interested in funding these 3, and let me continue to work on general population, because that will need to be addressed at some point, we can do that as well. So yes, I do have $120,000 available, and I'm happy to assign that where y'all like.
Don't you need that for the other big project? Yes. So right now, I'm interested in talking about funding the 3 items of $75,000, $75,000, and $50,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Then I would like to see, there is a request to further support the Santa Fe and Station 618 parking lot improvement. You currently have currently have $85,000. The cost is $160,000, so that leaves us with $75,000 funding request.
No,
Is that right?
I don't,
Wait, it
think
says
they need about
you funded
212.
85,000. Their total project cost is 160. So it would be the difference between 160 and 85, based off of the chart we have.
I'm not
I
sure
don't think those numbers are
which
right.
sheet you're looking at, but in the spreadsheet that I sent out, oh, you're looking at Santa Fe and Station
I said
618
Santa Fe and
crossing.
Station 618.
Crossing, but that's not the parking lot.
Okay, the crossing, so you have 85,000 already budgeted or funded, right? And you have a need of 160.
So this is just renovations to the senior center, is that what you're?
Not the parking lot and park improvement around that, Rick?
The parking lot is up above.
Okay, so if you go up to the Station 618 parking lot.
Yes, ma'am.
That includes the improvements that would go around that church?
It includes improvements, primarily not around the church itself. The Old Town is paying for to provide a plaza there in front. Parks is helping do that work. So it is from that church going west, which would be the parking lot to the west of the church.
Some of that is actually improvements to the edge of the building to keep water from getting into the building, correct?
Right, on 618, not the church building, but on
618,
Station
right.
618, yes.
Okay, but
there.
the question then is, this number, this 279, 675, is that inclusive of what Harry just asked about?
Yes.
Okay, so then the difference between the 67, if somebody would use a calculator
About
for me, please.
212,000.
212.
But I would suggest,
475.
yeah, I would suggest if we decide that's what we want to do, that we find $12,475 and just dedicate $200,000 towards that project.
Okay, that messes with my numbers a minute, but we'll get back to it. Okay, the other item that I believe would make a huge amount of sense to do is the traffic signal battery backup system for $200,000.
Agreed.
I think that's very important. So with that, then what, I have 125.
I think you're at
Then,
732s.
I was gonna say, I think you're at 720 something, aren't you, Mayor?
if you'll just re-add those for me, because I had the numbers wrong there. But then the other thing I want to make sure we do with some of this excess fund is to come up with the balance, which would be about 720, if we did that one. If it's not, let's say.
Looks like you have about 210,000 thereabouts left.
Okay, with that 210,000, I see a great need to put that money towards the fort and get those repairs done ASAP.
And the other thing you may want to think about on those dollars, if you give us a little bit of flexibility on the river hotspots, as we get into that, if we find something that, really could be done and it's going to take an extra $25,000, it kind of gives us a little flexibility there as well.
Okay, so
Yeah, you
if
could label it fort/river, something like that. So it gets-
fort/river,
Yeah, it
and
gives
you will
us-
work to use those monies. And I repeat, the fort must have some immediate attention.
Harry, I would recommend on the one you talked about as the mayor was bringing up on the Station 618 parking lot, because that is a bid item, we can find the dollars elsewhere, but before we actually award that bid, we have to have the dollars in place, so.
I want to make sure we go forward with the project, but I'm just saying that, if you're looking at $12,000 and a $75 million budget, somewheres we ought to be able to find that kind of money.
Well, with some of the things we're proposing, it might take some monies out of already budgeted numbers that they can find. So let me repeat this and be clear on what I have put forward and make sure I have not messed up on these numbers or a strategy here, and then actually further comment from council if possible. Number one, we must do tree irrigation. Nobody plants trees without a way to irrigate it. This is a big quality of life issue we have in San Angelo, and I cannot imagine we cannot, we must afford the irrigation system for our trees. So that's a number one issue for me. A number two issue for me is the funding of animal services for the old garage, the new garage, and the processing room. So that's $200,000 there. I believe strongly we need to support the traffic signal battery backup system of $200,000. That's 520 with those three items. And I am suggesting that we look at the Station 618 parking lot. Let's say for that right now. Well, let me go back. No, that's all right. So that's, let's say that's 200 temporarily. So that's 720, or about 721. Then we have 941 to spend, right? So that leaves 220,000. I'd like that 220,000 to go towards bank stabilization and Fort Concho immediate attention. And that, of course, is in addition to asking that the $371,000 worth of equipment replacement needs, which are necessary to be put into the actual 2018-19 budget, and we adjust the sales revenue to up to accommodate those increases in expenses.
Say that again, Mayor.
Yes. Just on the trucks.
Just on the top 9 equipment
Yes.
replacement issues?
What I'd like for those to do is to be budgeted into our fiscal 18-19 budget, and that's about $371,000. And if we could then increase our sales revenue line item by that $371,000, so our revenue equals our expenses and maintains a balanced budget.
Thank you.
Do I have further questions or comments from council or other ideas or suggestions?
Just a comment, Mayor. This goes back to something that I harp on regularly. People may not hear me say it, but my fellow council members do, and I know the city manager does. At some point, we have got to start addressing our streets and roads. We've got a 10-year program going, no doubt, but that is major arterial streets. There are many streets in every one of our single-member districts that need replacement and or major repair. And if one of the main functions of government is infrastructure, being the roads we drive on, which I believe it is, we have got to have a discussion about how we are going to do that. Now, I say that in light of $1.6 million, you know, that's a drop in the bucket as to what our needs are, no doubt. I'm wondering if at some point, I have no argument with what we're talking about here, but I wonder at some point when we have this kind of savings or this kind of additional revenue that comes our way, if maybe we shouldn't restrain ourselves some and start saving that money to go towards major projects such as roads. And it would, you know, I can think of a couple in my district. Every one of y'all sitting here could come up with a couple in y'all's district that I can think of one road that, you know, 1.6 would go a long way towards improving, if not totally replacing that roadway. So let's move forward with what we've got now, but I know staff is working on something to come back to us, and it may be a 50-year plan. I don't know what it'll end up being, but to address our streets and roads. But I want to put a little context around that with saying maybe at some point our 1.6 millions that we have year over year, we just start saving that for really things that affects every citizen in some part of the city. I'll stop.
Thank you. Any other further comments, Lucy?
I just have a comment. Of course, you know, on my list it would be the Martin Luther King bathroom because the restroom because of the fact that I think that that's the only big park that does not have any restrooms. So ever since I've been on the council, that has been one of my things that I would like to see. But again, like I said, I know you can get a lot more things completed by that list than the $225,000 for them.
And I can support you on that, Lucy, but it is not the only park that doesn't have restrooms. There are several in the community, but MLK has been on that list since long before you and I were on council.
Yes, definitely.
So I think it's something that we really need to take a serious look at. So Carl, from your perspective, I think we need to look at those parks that do not have restrooms and put together a long-term plan as to how we're going to get there.
Yeah, but what I was talking about was the big parks. You know, all the big parks do have restrooms, and MLK is a big park, and I just really believe that should be one that needs to be looked at.
It's also, Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
when we start talking about restrooms, we also have to talk about the maintenance of those restrooms as well. So we have to make sure that as city staff does address that moving into the future, that all that is accounted for, that it's not just we're funding a restroom and no way of actually maintaining it. So.
And hopefully if we approach this on an ongoing basis, and Tommy, thank you for saying we're going to have a positive revenue trend over planned sales over the next few decades, that would be great, and we'll be able to fund all these additional projects. And hopefully by taking some of these projects off the list that are in the CIP plan, it will open up dollars next year for some of these other things. And that's one of the reasons today I wanted to make sure we look at the CIP plan and start attacking some of those things that are on this plan, addressing them and helping us eliminate some of these things and move forward. With that, do I have a motion for the proposals that I've put forward?
So move.
With a second?
Second.
Any public comment?
Steve Hampton. How many it's what, 2 meetings ago, I said that the money was already spent. Well, seems to be spent several times.
And how would that be?
You have more. You had 1.4. Now you have 1.6.
Yes, another month has happened, and we had additional sales increase over the plan.
Well, and I was corrected as being out of line for having said it was already spent. It's more than spent. It's always going to be that way. What is the debt of the city? 500? 500 million? How much in debt are we?
Would somebody like to answer that question? Or do you have other questions as well?
It's in the neighborhood of 200, Steve.
200, okay. It's been a while and I forgot. I apologize.
Keep in mind,
Me
of
too.
course,
Me
one of
too.
those-
In my
Just one
mind.
second. Daniel,
Me
did
too.
you have a comment?
You want to forget.
Yeah, when we start talking about debt, though, I want to make sure that we're clear that a lot of that debt goes toward the water needs that we have. And it's not, I want to make sure that you understand that we're not just spending the money for the sake of spending it. As far as the debt service that we've accumulated, is to address absolute needs in this community. So again, as you say, we say 200,000, we know that a lot of that goes toward water.
Yes, but we have service of that debt too, and it's costing us how much?
That would be similar to a mortgage, right? So
Yes.
most people, when they want to buy a home,
Yes.
don't have 100%
So
of the
not only do we have
cash.
200, we've probably got 300 when it comes down to paying all the interest and everything.
Okay.
And maybe that's conservative. But the point is that the debt has not come up once in this volley, and I would like to insert it. These are all worthy things. They're always worthy. And the fact that you're moving the 371 forward to the next budget, we started at a 3%. It was moved to a 1.5. Now it's almost what, a half, 0.5? What is the what are you doing to the budget? It's going to be equal with what it would originally, well, not originally, but what it would be set if
Proposed,
if
word
proposed
would be proposed.
without any change, without any conservation at all. The hard facts, the hard numbers, and that's all projection and not reality. Tommy had a good point about saving money. We need a rainy day fund, and We seem to have a lot of them lately. We don't
Certainly
need,
found
we're
the
not
value-
searching for
yeah.
water.
We certainly found the value of water this week, didn't we?
Yeah, we have water, and the prayers of many have come to fruition, and I think that we are a little paranoid about the water, but there were many who would disagree with that. Anyway, I just think that debt needs to be worked in here. This 1.6 breaks down to about 125 or 225 apiece of you for you, and maybe that's the approach that we need to break it down into individual districts where Lucy can have her bathroom if that's what she wants to spend it on, and give her a little control of the financials instead of doing it in a lump sum. A couple of you could go together and do something. If you think that the animal shelter and animal services needs to receive money. So
thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Just a real quick comment, and don't want to answer Steve's question directly, but I got to remind citizens that this is the first time in about 6 or 7, maybe 8 years that we've had a surplus. That's why we have so many items on this CIP list, is because we couldn't fund them to begin with. So having the opportunity to fund some of those things to take care of citizens' needs is why we've got that 1.6 today that we're distributing out for these things that we've put on the back burner for 6, 7, 8 years.
Thank you, Harry. Is there one more public comment? Hello.
I'm Lynette Lucas, and I just wanted to say.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Sorry, that I agree.
Lower the microphone so you can speak into it. It'll make it easier. Thank you.
I agree with you, the infrastructure. I would like to see infrastructure as a priority for our city.
How many dollars do we have budgeted in the fiscal 18-19 budget for streets and roads?
It's over at this point for the actual SEALCO program, so $4.1 million, Tina, is that correct? So, and again, we do allocate, on every other year, we're looking at about $80 million as well that we're allocating toward the reconstruction project. So we are actually working on streets at this point. What a council member is talking about is putting more money toward that, which of course we do have needs for that, and that's something that we'll be planning for.
Okay, and so I just wanted to say that bathrooms and those kind of things, we're always talking about drought and all that. I don't think that's a priority. We're going to add more maintenance costs. I mean,
That's why it's not on the list right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I am coming from a taxpayer, of course, perspective that we are paying a lot of taxes already. And so if there's anything we can reduce, and actually I like his comment that he said that we should do things that help the whole city and all the citizens, and kind of put that as a priority. So
We agree with you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Any further public comment? With no further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Michael
Mayor,
Dane, did you have a comment?
I think a piece of that motion, I think you're going to have to repeat at a subsequent
Yeah.
agenda item, the piece related to the new year budget.
I figure we will when we
I
go
can do
down to that item. Right.
Well, this item actually was just for discussion only, so what you just voted on was actually discretion to staff, and they will be bringing back, I believe, a budget amendment.
A budget amendment.
That will outline those projects.
All right. So with that, we can move on to the next. Is that what you're telling me? We're okay on this? Okay. With that, we will have you update on the sales tax revenue performance for the month of August. Well,
Oh,
September, but
September,
it's actually August. Well, it's actually
July receipts, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were up 14.48% in September compared with the same month in the prior year. Our total revenue for sales tax was at $1.6 million, as you know, we just discussed. In our fiscal year 2018, receipts in total were up 12.11% and $2 million over the fiscal year 2017 receipts. Fiscal year 18 turned out to be our second highest year ever for sales tax revenue, coming in right behind 2015, where we had $18.9 million in sales tax revenue.
It's a very positive news, so
Yes,
I know it
ma'am.
makes everybody feel a lot better about the plan going forward. Thank you, Tina.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we will now move to the item H. So item H is a second public hearing and adoption of an ordinance of the City of San Angelo approving and adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2018 and ending September 30th, 2019. This budget will raise more total property taxes than last year's budgeted by $626,546, or a 1.67% increase, and of that amount, $383,414 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll.
So this is the second public hearing where we adopt our budget ordinance. I think with the motion, we'll need to add the caveat to add the equipment replacement, transfer out of $370,000 additional to the budget. And of course, you know, we've included here salary adjustments for all employees, covering the increased cost to health insurance and the 5 additional police officers.
All right, so what we are going to say is that we will approve the budget as proposed with the following change, and that is to increase the sales revenue by $370,000 and to
371. Did you want to do the
yeah,
exact
whatever
amount?
that.
Okay.
The number here couldn't have a 1 in it, so because all of these are zeros as presented, so
Okay.
you can't have a 1 or a 2 if they're all zeros. So
You could just say that we're going to increase the sales tax revenue and the equipment replacement in the same amount. We don't have to be too specific.
perfect, okay. So with that said, do I have further questions from any city council member as it relates to the budget proposed? With no comments from city council, may I please have a motion to approve as presented
Do we have
with the
to-
change of
Do we have to do these individual again?
and yes, and we are going to do that. But the motion first. The second,
So moved.
and a second. Okay. Second. A second. And now we will have further public comment.
Steve Hampton. I have one question, and that question is, the 12 vehicles for the police was rushed, we were rushed to make that purchase because of contract, it was cheaper for us. $540,000, is that correct?
That's correct. That is for, that is $540,000 that came out of the sales tax
Sales
revenue
tax.
increase. The rest of the money is coming from the 18-19 budget.
Oh, the rest of the money. Okay, I thought that was
There were
to be-
24 cars purchased. 12 were being purchased by the additional sales tax revenue of $540,000.
Okay,
Then there was a budgeted item in the fiscal 2018-19 budget for additional 12 cars. So the-
12 more, okay.
For a total of 24.
yeah.
So the decision was made to move the money forward so that we
Okay.
could actually purchase the 24 cars at the reduced price by meeting the deadline of September the 18th.
That's, thank you very much.
And that also included the additional things that we have to do to those cars to make them
Equipment, light equipment, and so
whatever your
I
terminology
had
is.
understood that you were buying it now and then reimbursing, so you would have another balance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, I do appreciate all of the comments from citizens as it relates to the debt that we have. I don't think anybody chooses to run their life where they feel pressured by the debt. Our debt is currently sustainable based off of our ability to pay the debt service. At this point, there's no risk based off of that debt, but we all should be concerned in our daily lives, and us as city council members should be concerned about approving anything that would increase the liability of the city and or the citizens. So your comments concerning debt are greatly appreciated, and know that we are looking at that every time we talk about increasing the debt. We will not put the citizens nor this city at risk. We will not.
Mayor, if I could add to that
Yes.
as well, we have of course, we do have a debt service plan that we do follow closely. And we're very conservative with our budget, and the city at this point has a high credit rating because of that. So we're very mindful, and we want to make sure that absolutely we're fiscally responsible for our citizens. But in order for us to operate, we're going to have some debt, and especially as we move forward in the future, we start looking at the needs that we have. We'll address it, but we'll make sure that we're doing it in a very responsible way.
And remember, we cannot borrow money if, in fact, our numbers aren't good numbers. No one's going to loan us money, the city money, if we can't afford it. They're very conservative. So, but I ask again, anytime you're concerned, anytime you have an issue, please bring it forward. That's why you're the citizens we care about and the city we care about. So your questions and comments are very much appreciated, and we thank you for those. Okay, with
Mayor?
that, yes.
Before we move away from this slide, I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page with the health insurance piece. We've set aside an amount that we expect, based on current estimates, will cover that increase. But if we have an adverse trend in the last few months, that increase may be more than this. We're not promising to cover all the increases. We've dedicated an amount to cover the increases we do see.
Very important. We approved dollars.
That's right.
We approved dollars.
The final
need to
setting of
remember that.
those premiums has not been done yet. And if we have an adverse trend and those premiums have to go up more than we currently expect, then we'll have to revisit that conversation.
Thank you for that comment. Is there any further public comment? If not, we will take a vote, and I will start with Tommy Hebert.
Single member District 1 votes aye.
Single member District 2 votes aye.
Single member District 3 votes aye.
Single member District 4 votes aye.
Single member District 5 votes aye.
Single member District 6 vote aye.
The mayor of the city of San Angelo votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. The next item is I, final public hearing and adoption of an ordinance leveling property taxes for the city of San Angelo for the 2018 tax year. An ordinance fixing and leveling, I can't say that today.
Levying?
Would somebody
Levy-
help me with
levying.
that?
Levying.
And it's not caffeine, it's just a tongue problem. And ad valorem taxes for the current tax year for use and support of the municipal government of the city of San Angelo, Texas for the 2018-2019 budget year, providing for the assessment and collection thereof, providing when the tax shall become due, providing when the tax shall become delinquent, providing for exemptions, providing for severability, providing for publication on the city-operated website, and providing for an effective date. Tina?
Yes, ma'am. This is the final public hearing for the tax ordinance, and we are, of course, remaining the same at .776 per $100 valuation. And then just a quick breakout of how that breaks out. Maintenance and operations is .6824 of that, and our debt service allocation is .0936.
With that, do I have a motion for approval of item I?
So moved.
In a second.
And I think, is this the one where you have the exact wording for the motion? We'll need the motion to be read this way.
Okay. With that, we're first going to open it up for public comment. My public comment is I hope this is the highest level of property tax we have, and we hope to address that going forward. Thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to read the property tax levy. Tommy?
Each council member needs to read that.
We need a motion and a second, and
Oh, to
then
say
we'll,
this.
for the
Just a
vote.
motion.
Okay, Harry, you made the motion. Would you make the motion with reading this, please?
I move that the property tax rate remain the same by the adoption of the tax rate of .7760 per $100 valuation.
Second.
With that, now we open it up for public comment again. With no public comment, we will take a vote. I will start with Tommy Hebert.
Single member in District 1 votes aye.
Or do we have to read it out?
No, you just need to give your vote.
Single member District 2, I vote aye.
Single member District 3, I vote aye.
Single member District 4 votes aye.
Single member District 5 votes aye.
Single member District 6 vote aye.
Mayor of San Angelo votes aye. With that, motion passes 7-0. Then the last item on the regular agenda is to consider, thank you very much, a resolution enacting standard conservation level of the city's water conservation drought contingency plan. And Allison, you're on.
Morning again. With the recent rainfall, we have received some runoff into our local reservoirs. I have these levels as of September 13th. I show that Ivy went from approximately 14% up to 15%, but what that means is approximately 6,200 acre feet or so of water, and that was the largest body of water, or that was the largest amount of inflow from any of these reservoirs. Twin Buttes, for instance, received just a little over 1,700 acre feet, and these are the inflows that we received somewhere between September 2nd and September 13th. So we are still seeing some increases in these lakes. As of last Friday, I've showed y'all this before of how we calculate drought level, and one of the main drivers in that calculation is provided from CRMWD regarding Lake Ivy. Before or prior to last Friday, their deadline or what they projected for Lake Ivy was September of 2019. They have revised those projections as of Friday morning and sent us that they project a 3-month increase to that, so to December of 2019. So this is what it looks like with a breakdown of all of our reservoirs. 16 months remaining on Ivy with the water we'd have in O.C. Fisher, Twin Buttes, Lake Nasworthy, coupled with our minimum pumping from the Hickory, we're at 25 months of water supply. So that does put us over that 24-month threshold. And what standard conservation restrictions are, it would allow watering twice every 7 days rather than the once a week that we're at currently. It's still not allowed between noon and 6 p.m. And then the November through March, rather than being once every 14 days, which is in drought level 1, we would go back to once a week watering during that time period. Still no more than 1 inch per week, and then the new landscape variances were still allowed under the standard conservation. So with that, I'm recommending that drought level 1 restrictions immediately be approved after this resolution, and then the conservation rates would be assessed in the October billings going forward.
Thank you, Allison. Comments or questions from any city council member? Lane, you do?
Would it be an impact to the cells if we stayed in drought level 1 to be more conservative? Evaporation with the cooler levels of temperature is going down.
I think if you would like to do that, we would need to revisit the conservation plan, which I can bring that back. So if you'd like to move that 24-month threshold, but for now, what's in the ordinance is 24 months. So if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we need to say, come out of drought level, but revise the plan if that is something y'all are interested in.
And what does that mean, revise the plan?
I guess adjusting that 24-month threshold for drought level 1 to a number of 30 months, 36 months. I'm not sure if you have a target in mind.
Didn't we prematurely go into drought level 1 on our discretion against the plan because we were close enough to it?
No, we
Or
didn't.
was that
We had 25 months of water, and we adopted it as of August 1st, which is when we hit that 24-month threshold. So we didn't make it effective
projection.
until it was that 24-month mark.
You probably don't have the information to this, nor do I expect you to have it, but at a future meeting, what I would like to have is the update on what has happened to our revenue based off of changing the $25 fee that we changed and created a new policy. And
Late
I
fee?
know,
You know about the late fee?
And so I'd just like to see how that's impacted the budget, because I know we were concerned about that at one point, what it would look like, and I just want to see if it has or has not impacted the budget, because I think we believe that there were many citizens that would, was a positive decision to make for them. So I'd just like to see the impact.
Okay, I can bring that back.
Great.
I would agree with Council Member Carter. I think it would be good for us to revisit the conservation ordinance, because, you know, I think in some instances, it may make sense to do some things that would be common sense. So maybe when you have some time, Allison, next 90, 120 days, you can look at that whole ordinance structure and come back with, if there needs to be new thought, new recommendations, that we can look at that as kind of one package. If
It
that's
could be up or down.
It could be
Meaning,
up or down.
because we're talking about trying to extend it, we might need to pull it back, because if we get in a very tough drought situation, 24 months might be way too much. So it ought to be looked at on both ends of the scale.
Sure.
And particularly if it is something that happens as we go into the summer season, because we did this one at the end of the summer season. So as we look at it, it could be a whole new broad picture.
You might
but
have some
for-
thoughts, Allison, that have been running through your head anyway, so maybe now's the time to take a look at that.
Okay, we can do that.
24 months just makes me a little uncomfortable on what we have for a size city that we are.
That's why we should look at it.
Definitely.
On both ends of the scale. Okay, with that, we have a need for a motion.
Motion to terminate drought level 1 restrictions and return to standard conservation rates.
Right, and,
Second.
okay. With that, do we have public comment?
I do have one question. If this is based on ordinance, why do we even have to vote on it if it's?
The ordinance requires council resolution to go back and forth
Go
between
back
the
and
different
forth.
drought levels. Yes.
We voted to go into it, we have to vote to go out of it.
Yes.
That was a question. Why did we go into it that way if it was based on ordinance? That's still on our discretion.
Yes.
One of the changes that we are actually considering is making it an automatic trigger. So as soon as we hit 24 months, even if it's 2 weeks away from the next council meeting, at that point is when we make the declaration we're in drought level 1, versus having to wait the 2 weeks to come.
So you react to need.
Immediately, yeah. And I think that's the way that most cities operate. It's a trigger point you set, and then it automatically goes into effect without
Okay.
further action.
And I think another, from last week's events, an important thing to note would be drought level 3 has a specific section of the ordinance that talks about any sort of major infrastructure failures and those type of things. That drought level 3 can be implemented under those cases. And so we could have gone under drought level 3, but because it required a city council resolution, we voluntarily asked citizens to conserve, cut back on their water usage. But that would be something, if we could implement drought level 3 in cases like last week, would have been very helpful.
Okay, very good. I think I've asked for public comment, but my memory's short right
did.
now. So if I did, then what we are ready for is a vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And with that, we will move into closed session. Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding 1, Lake Nasworthy residential lots, 2, Lot 9D, Block 2, Section 9A, Red Arroyo Hills Edition, 3, lease at San Angelo Regional Airport, and B, Section 551.0712, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding 1, water supply, and 2, West Texas Water Partnership. We will be out for an hour,
Easily. About
hour and a half.
Probably an hour and a half. We'll be right.
Okay. At what time are we?
It is
126.
At 1:20.
1:36.
1:36
1:36
p.m. I guess we took a little longer than we thought.
Good.
With that said, we will go to item 9, follow-up in administrative issues, which is A, consider items discussed in executive session if needed. And I think, Tom Thompson, you are going to lead us in that discussion.
Right, going to make a motion authorizing staff to begin the initial permitting process for a discharge from water reclamation facility permit and bed and banks permit along the Concho River for the purpose of augmentation of the Concho River for water development.
Second.
Is there any public comment? Steve, are you coming up?
He's not, he's.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you started to come up here and then you sat back down, so I just wanted to make sure you felt like you had an opportunity to come up and visit. Okay. With that said, there's no public comment. We will take a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? No. Motion passes 7-0. We will now go into item B. Consider approving various board nominations. These are for the Design and Historic Review Commission. James Thomas from SMD2 as a historian to an unexpired term ending September 2019, and Lisa Wallace, SMD5 designer to an unexpired term ending September 2019. Now, I hope, because we need to make sure people on this Design and Historic Review Commission know and understand the value of a historic downtown district. With that, there is a motion made by Lane and a second by Lucy. Is there any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Item C, announcements and consideration of future agenda items. Do we have any?
Yes, we've got 3 forums that are scheduled for on recycling service. Wednesday, September 26th, which is next Wednesday, week from tomorrow, right here in the McNeese Convention Center. And on Tuesday, October 2nd at Southland Baptist Church. And on Thursday, October 4th at Lincoln Middle School. We'll talk about recycling.
And what time are these, please?
6 p.m.
Just to repeat, 6 p.m. And on October the 4th, that doesn't not conflict with the Pillars of San Angelo, because that, I think, is scheduled for that night.
I do not know.
Go back and take a look at that, Mayor.
All I can tell you is that this was just put out by Anthony here just a few minutes ago. I don't know whether it
Well, aren't you in the Boys and Girls Club that puts on that Pillars of San Angelo?
does.
And that's October the 4th.
This starts at, yes, it starts at 6, and that's actually, we'll have the same time at that. That's the same time the Boys and Girls Club thing is.
We can make an adjustment to that, though. I mean, it's still early enough. We'll make sure that we make that adjustment, no problem.
It might be for council members that don't want to attend, but I just wanted to bring
Sure.
that up because I asked that question when they brought those forward to me, if
Okay.
there was a conflict there.
Very good.
Okay, with that, any further announcements? With none, may I have?
Move we adjourn.
Thank you. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 1. Yay. Just for fun.